I installed cameras in my own house. I did not tell anyone, not my son, not my neighbors, not even Susan, who has been my best friend for a lifetime. I did it because I could not take it anymore, because something was happening, and nobody believed me. Then, one afternoon, I reviewed the recordings, and I saw everything. I saw my daughter-in-law entering my house with a copy of the key. I saw how she opened my drawers, how she touched my clothes, how she stood in front of my closet as if it were hers. And the worst of all, the thing that made my blood run cold, I saw her lying in my bed, in my bedroom, sleeping in my sheets, using my pillow, as if this were her house, as if I did not exist. When I saw that, I felt like the floor was opening up beneath my feet. It was not fear. It was not rage yet. It was something worse. It was the confirmation that everything I had felt for weeks was real, that I was not crazy, that I was not exaggerating, that someone had been violating my space, my privacy, my home, and that person was my son's wife, the mother of my grandchildren, the one who smiled at family dinners and hugged me when she arrived. Amanda, my daughter-in-law, the same one who told me she loved me like a mother. Now I know it was all a lie. But in that moment, when I saw it on the screen of my phone, I could only stay still, staring, trying to understand. Because it is one thing to suspect, it is another thing to know. And I had just learned something that would change me forever, something I could not forget even if I wanted to. My daughter-in-law was sneaking into my house, and she had been doing it for who knows how long. I did not cry. I did not scream. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed where she had slept without my permission, and I felt a horrible emptiness, an emptiness that has no name. Because when someone from your own family betrays you like that, it is not just pain, it is confusion, it is disbelief, it is asking yourself what you did wrong. What did you fail to give? Why were you not enough? Why is your own space not respected, even by your own people? But we will get to that. First, I need you to understand how it all started. Because this did not begin with the cameras. It began much earlier, with details so small that anyone else would have ignored them, but not me. I have been in this world for 68 years, and I have learned that important things always start in silence, that the biggest betrayals are built with tiny lies, and that when something does not fit, it is almost always because someone is moving the pieces without you seeing it. So I am going to tell you everything, from the beginning, from the first time I felt that something was wrong, from the day I returned home and found a mug in the sink, a mug that I had not used, because that was when it started. That was when my life ceased to be mine. And although I did not know it yet, that was the day everything began to crumble. Or rather, the day I started to wake up. Because sometimes the worst blindness is not of the eyes, it is of the heart. It is believing that your family respects you just because they are your family. It is thinking that love protects you from betrayal, and I believed that for a long time, until I could no longer keep believing. Until I had to open my eyes. Until I had to install cameras in my own house to defend the only thing I had left, my dignity, my space, my right to live in peace. And when I finally saw the truth, I knew I had two options. I could shut up, swallow the pain, pretend like nothing happened, or I could do something I never imagined I would do, something that scared me. But it was necessary, because I was tired of being invisible, tired of being treated as if I did not matter, as if my things were not mine, as if my house belonged to everyone but me. So I decided to act, but not with screaming, not with a scene. I decided to act with intelligence, with patience, and with something they never expected from me, with evidence, because when you are an older woman, people assume you are fragile, that you do not understand, that you exaggerate, that your word is not worth as much as before. But I was going to prove them wrong. I was going to prove that being older does not mean being foolish, that being 68 years old does not make you invisible, and that if someone crosses the line, there are consequences, even if they are your own blood, even if she is the mother of your grandchildren, even if it hurts more than you can bear. So yes, I installed cameras, and I recorded everything, and I saw things that broke my soul. But I also saw the opportunity to take back what they had taken from me, my peace of mind, my truth, my right to be heard. And that was exactly what I did. But not all at once, not from one day to the next. This took time, it took strategy, it took strength, and it took something I never thought I would have to use against my own family. It took coldness. Now everything is different. Now there are boundaries. Now there is respect. But to get here, I had to go through hell. I had to see things I should never have seen. I had to endure humiliations that no one deserves. And I had to learn that sometimes love is not enough. That sometimes you have to defend yourself, even from those you love the most. Because if you do not, you lose yourself. And that is something I was not willing to allow. Not at this stage of my life. Not after everything I had fought for. Not after raising my son alone. After working myself to the bone to give him everything, so that he would have a better life than mine. And yet here I was, watching his wife enter my house as if it were hers, as if I did not matter, as if my things were hers, and my son not believing me, not listening to me, not even doubting her, choosing her over me. That was what hurt the most. Not so much what she did, but that he did not believe me, that he looked at me with pity, as if I were inventing things, as if I were a paranoid old woman who no longer reasoned well. But now he knows the truth. Now everyone knows. And although things will never be as they were before, at least there is something I recovered, something that no one can take from me again. My voice, my truth, and the respect I deserve, because that is what I am going to tell you in this story. How a 68-year-old woman refused to be invisible, how she decided that enough was enough, and how, without shouting, without violence, without losing her composure, she managed to get justice. Not the justice of the courts, but the justice of the heart, the kind that gives you back your peace, the kind that tells you that you did the right thing, even if it hurt, even if it cost you, even if everything changed forever. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 68 years old. I was born in a small town in the Midwest and arrived in this city more than 40 years ago looking for a better life. I did not find it easily, but I built it. With my own hands, with my own effort. I worked in other people's houses scrubbing floors. I washed clothes until my fingers ached. I cooked in diners where the heat left you breathless. And I did all that for one single reason. For my son, for Christopher, because his father left us when he was barely 3 years old, and I swore that boy was never going to go hungry, that he would never lack for anything, and I kept that promise. Even if it cost me my back, even if it cost me my sleep, even if it cost me my entire youth. Christopher studied. He graduated. He got a good job. He married Amanda 11 years ago. They have 2 children. They live 20 minutes from my house. And for a long time, I thought it had all been worth it, that finally I could rest, that my life had had meaning. But now I know that things are not that simple, that raising a son does not guarantee he will respect you, that sacrificing yourself for someone does not mean they will value you, and that a mother's love, no matter how big it is, sometimes is not enough to make them listen. I have lived alone for 12 years. Since I was widowed by my second husband, he was good to me. He accompanied me. He made me feel loved after so many years of loneliness. But cancer took him quickly. And since then, this house is mine alone. It is small. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, a backyard with plants that I tend to every day. It is not much, but it is mine. Every piece of furniture I bought with my money. Every ornament has a story. Every corner is organized exactly how I like it. Because I am like that. Organized, meticulous. I cannot live in disorder. I need everything to be in its place. It has always been like that. Since I was a girl. That is why I realized it. That is why I noticed things that others would not have noticed. Because I know my house like the back of my hand. I know exactly where everything goes. I know how I leave the closet doors. I know at what angle I place the chairs. I know how many spoons I have in the drawer and in what order they are arranged. It may sound exaggerated. It may sound obsessive. But that attention to detail was what saved me. It was what allowed me to see that something was wrong long before it was obvious, because the changes were small, so small that anyone would have ignored them. But not me. I saw them, and I stored them in my memory, one by one, like pieces of a puzzle I did not yet understand. I also have a good memory. I always have. I can remember entire conversations from years ago. I can tell you what we ate at Christmas dinner 5 years ago. I can remember the clothes Christopher was wearing the day of his graduation. Details stick with me, and that is sometimes a blessing. But other times, it is a burden. Because when you start to notice that things are not how you left them, and you remember it with such clarity, you cannot convince yourself that you imagined it. You cannot tell yourself that you are confused, because you know you are not. You know something changed, and you know someone was there. My routine is simple. I get up at 6 in the morning. I make coffee. I eat toast with jelly for breakfast. I water the plants in the backyard. Then I sit down to watch the news or knit. Tuesdays and Thursdays I go to the grocery store. Wednesdays I go to church service. Fridays Susan comes to have coffee with me. Sundays I go to have lunch at Christopher's house. Or at least I used to, because now things are different. But back then, that was my life. Quiet, predictable, without shocks. And I liked it that way. After so many years of struggle, I finally had peace. Or so I thought. I was never one to go out much. I do not have friends in excess. Susan is the only one I truly trust. We met 30 years ago at the supermarket. She is also a widow. She also raised her children alone. We understand the same language, the language of sacrifice, of fatigue, of sleepless nights wondering if we were doing things right. That is why when I started noticing the weird things, she was the first person I told. Although at first, not even she believed me entirely. She thought I was exaggerating. That loneliness was playing a trick on me, but I insisted, because I knew what I was seeing, and I needed someone to believe me. Even if it was just one person. I am not stupid. I am not naive. I have lived too long not to know when something is wrong. I have seen everything. I have been through everything. And if life has taught me anything, it is to trust my gut. When something does not feel right, there is almost always a reason. And my gut had been screaming at me for weeks that something was happening in my own house. Something I did not control. Something that happened when I was not there. And that feeling was unbearable, because your house is supposed to be your sanctuary. The only place where you should feel completely safe, completely the owner of yourself, and I was losing that. I was losing my peace of mind in the only place I had left. I am also reserved. I do not like going around telling my problems. I do not like to complain. I was raised to solve things by myself, not to be a burden, not to bother anyone with my issues, and that has sometimes worked against me, because when I finally decided to speak, when I finally told Christopher that something strange was happening, he did not take me seriously. He thought I was making it up, that I was bored, that I needed more activities, more distractions, as if what I was feeling was only a product of my imagination, as if being older meant that you can no longer trust your own eyes. That was what hurt me the most at first. Not so much what was happening, but that my own son did not believe me, that he looked at me with that mixture of pity and annoyance, as if I were a problem, as if my worries did not matter, as if my word was worth nothing just for being 68 years old. And that was when I understood something. I understood that if I wanted someone to believe me, I was going to need more than words. I was going to need proof, proof that no one could deny, proof that forced them to see what I was seeing, even if they did not want to, even if it hurt them, even if it changed everything. That is why I did what I did. That is why I spent $300 that I had saved in the back of my closet, money I was saving to fix the kitchen ceiling, money that was hard to gather. But I used it to buy 2 small cameras, 2 devices I could hide easily, one in the living room, another in my bedroom. I installed them myself. It was not difficult. I just had to connect them to the Wi-Fi and download an app on my phone, and that was it. From that moment I could see my house from anywhere, from the grocery store, from church, from the doctor's waiting room. I just had to open the app and there it was. My living room, my bedroom, empty, silent. Waiting. I did not tell anyone. Not Susan. Not Christopher. Because I knew that if I did, they were going to stop me. They were going to tell me I was exaggerating, that I was paranoid, that this was not normal. And maybe they were right. Maybe it was not normal to have to watch your own house. But it was also not normal to feel like someone was entering without your permission. So I did what I had to do. And I waited. With the phone always close. With my heart always in my throat. I waited for what I knew was going to happen, because something told me it was not going to take long, that the truth was about to show itself. And I was right. 3 days after installing the cameras, I saw everything. It all started on a Tuesday morning. It was hot. I remember I put on a floral dress and my comfortable sandals because I was going to the grocery store. I always go on Tuesdays. I leave around 9 and return around 11. It is my routine, and everyone knows it. Christopher knows it. Amanda knows it. The whole family knows that on Tuesdays I leave early. But that day, before leaving, I noticed something. A mug in the sink. A white mug with small flowers. I had not used it. The night before I washed everything. I left the kitchen spotless, as always, and there was that mug, dirty, with coffee residue at the bottom. I stood looking at it for a long while, trying to remember, thinking if perhaps I had gotten up in the early morning and had drunk something without remembering. But no, I do not do that. I sleep straight through, and when I get up at 6, the first thing I do is make coffee in my usual mug, the blue one with the gold rim, not in that one. So I washed the mug. I dried it. I put it in its place, and I went to the store. But during the whole drive, I could not stop thinking about it. A dirty mug that should not be there. It seemed like a silly thing, something insignificant, but I could not get it out of my head. A few days later, something else happened. I returned from church service on a Wednesday afternoon, and the closet door in my bedroom was ajar. Just a little, maybe 2 inches. But I always close the closet doors well. Always. I cannot fall asleep if I see something open. It is a quirk I have had since I was a girl. So I got closer. I opened the closet completely, and everything seemed to be in order. My clothes hanging, my shoe boxes stacked, my sweaters folded on the top shelf. Everything the same, but something did not feel right. I could not explain it. It was as if someone had touched my things and then had arranged them trying to make them look the same. But they did not look the same. There was something different in the air, in the order, in the energy of the space. Then I started paying more attention, noticing details that before I did not even consider. And that was how I noticed more things. Small, almost invisible, but constant. One Friday I found my hairbrush in the bathroom with a long, dark hair tangled between the bristles. I have short, gray hair. That hair was not mine. I pulled it out. I observed it against the light. It was thin, shiny, black, like Amanda's hair. But I told myself that maybe I had brought it without realizing. Maybe it stuck to me when I hugged her on Sunday. Although it made no sense, because I do not use that brush for anything other than combing my hair. And if a foreign hair had stuck to me, I would have seen it before. Another time, it was the television remote. I always leave it on the coffee table, on the right side, next to the vase. But one day I arrived and it was on the left side, near the sofa cushions. I took it, I put it in its place, and I tried to convince myself that I had moved it myself without realizing. But I knew I hadn't. I am too methodical for that. Everything has its place, and I do not change things around by accident. But I also could not tell anyone. Why? What was I going to say? That someone was entering my house to move the remote 2 inches? It would sound ridiculous. It would sound like I was losing my mind. Then it was my perfume. I have a bottle of perfume that Christopher gave me years ago. I almost never use it. Only on special occasions. I keep it in the top drawer of my dresser, on the right side, with the label facing the front. One day I opened the drawer, and the bottle was in the center, with the label facing the side, and it smelled. As if someone had uncapped it. As if someone had used it. I took the bottle in my hands. I smelled it. And I felt a chill, because it was not my imagination. Someone had touched my things. Someone had been in my bedroom, in my most private space. And they had done it without my permission. That night I almost did not sleep. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to every noise, every creak of the wood, every sound of the wind against the windows. And I asked myself who could be doing this? Who had access to my house? Who had a key? Only 3 people had a copy of my key: Christopher, Amanda, and Susan. Susan was ruled out immediately. She is my friend, my confidant. She would never do something like that to me. So that left my son and my daughter-in-law. But it made no sense. Why would either of them come to my house in secret? For what? What were they looking for? What did they want from me? Another week passed, and things continued. More and more often, more evident. One Monday I found one of my pillows on the bed with the case twisted, as if someone had slept there and then tried to fix it. One Thursday there were dirt stains on the floor of the entryway. Small, almost imperceptible. But I had mopped the day before, and I had not gone out to the backyard. So where did that dirt come from? One Saturday afternoon, I noticed that my hand cream was lower than I remembered. As if someone had used it, as if someone had squeezed some out and hadn't closed the cap well. I started keeping a mental log. A Tuesday, a Thursday, a Wednesday, always weekdays, always in the mornings, always when I left the house, never on weekends, never at night. There was a pattern, and that pattern told me that whoever was doing this knew perfectly well when I was not there. They knew my routine, they knew my schedule, and that reduced the options even more, because only someone close could know that, only someone trusted. So I did something I never thought I would do. One Friday, I pretended I was going out. I got dressed, I took my purse, I left through the front door. I locked it. I walked to the corner, and then I came back through the back alley. I entered through the patio door. I hid in the laundry room, and I waited. I waited for 2 hours, with my heart beating so hard I thought it was going to explode. I waited in silence, without moving, almost without breathing, but nothing happened. No one came, and I felt foolish, ridiculous, like a paranoid old woman who no longer knows what is real and what is not. I told Susan. One afternoon when she came to have coffee, I told her everything. The mugs, the closet, the perfume, the pillows, everything. And she listened to me with patience, but I saw the doubt in her eyes, the concern. She told me that maybe I was stressed, that maybe I needed to rest more, that at our age memory sometimes plays tricks on us, and I know she said it with good intentions. I know she loves me, but it hurt, because even she doubted me. Even my best friend thought I was inventing things, that I was confused, that I was seeing ghosts where there were none. But I was not confused. I knew what was happening, and I knew that if I did not find a way to prove it, no one was going to believe me, ever. They were going to treat me like an old woman who lost her judgment, like someone who can no longer trust her own senses. And I was not going to allow that. Not after having worked so hard, not after having fought so much. I was not going to let them take the only thing I had left, my dignity, my sanity, my right to be heard. So I made the decision. I was going to get proof, real proof, proof that no one could deny. And that is why I bought the cameras, because my word was no longer enough, because what I saw was no longer enough. I needed others to see it too. I needed the truth to come to light, even if it scared me, even if I did not know what I was going to find, even if the answer was worse than I imagined. I needed to know. I needed proof, and I was willing to do whatever was necessary to get it. I decided to talk to Christopher before installing the cameras. I thought that maybe if I explained everything calmly, if I showed him my concern, he would listen to me. He was my son, the son I raised alone, the son for whom I worked until I broke my back. I thought he would believe me, that at least he would investigate, that at least he would take me seriously. But I was wrong, completely wrong. It was a Sunday. After lunch, Amanda was in the kitchen washing the dishes. The kids were playing in the yard, and I took the opportunity to talk to Christopher alone in the living room. I sat across from him. I took a deep breath, and I told him I needed to tell him something important, something that was keeping me awake. He put his phone aside. He looked at me, and I started talking. I told him about the mug, about the closet, about the perfume, about the brush, about all the small things that had been happening for weeks. I told him that someone was entering my house when I was not there, that I needed him to help me, that I needed to know what was happening. Christopher looked at me in silence for a few seconds, and then he sighed, a long sigh, tired, as if what I had just told him was a nuisance, as if it were one more problem on his list of problems. Then he asked me if I had slept well lately, if I felt healthy, if maybe I needed to go to the doctor, and I told him it was not that, that I was fine, that I knew perfectly well what I was saying, that I was not confused or sick. But he insisted. He told me that sometimes stress makes us see things that do not exist, that sometimes loneliness plays tricks on us, that maybe I needed more company, more activities, more distractions. I felt as if I had been slapped, not by the words themselves, but by the tone, by the way he looked at me, with pity, with condescending concern, as if I were a little girl inventing monsters under the bed, as if my word was no longer worth anything just because I was 68. I told him I was not inventing anything, that the things I was telling him were real, that I knew my house better than anyone, that I knew when something was out of place. But he shook his head. He told me that probably I myself had moved those things and did not remember, that it was normal, that it happened to a lot of people my age. My age. Those words stuck like knives, because there it was, the truth behind everything. To him, I was already an old woman who could not trust her own memory, an old woman who confused things, who exaggerated, who needed to be told what was real and what was not, and no matter how much I explained, no matter how many details I gave him, he had already decided that I was wrong, that my perception was not reliable, that my concerns were not valid. I asked him to at least check if anyone else had a copy of my key. He told me that only he and Amanda had copies, and that neither of them would enter my house without telling me, that I knew they always called me before visiting, that they would never arrive by surprise like that. Then I suggested that maybe someone else had gotten a copy, that maybe a stranger was entering, and he looked at me as if I had just said the biggest nonsense in the world. He asked me who was going to want to enter my house? For what? What were they going to look for there? And I did not know what to answer, because when he put it like that, it sounded absurd. It sounded paranoid. It sounded exactly how he wanted it to sound. Amanda came out of the kitchen at that moment, drying her hands with a towel. She asked what we were talking about, and Christopher told her. He told her that I believed someone was entering my house. Amanda opened her eyes in surprise. She sat next to me. She took my hand in hers, and she told me in a sweet voice not to worry, that it was normal to feel like that when living alone, that she understood, that her grandmother had gone through the same thing before dying, that she started imagining things, distrusting everyone, and that in the end, it turned out it was the beginning of a memory problem. I could not believe what I was hearing. Amanda comparing me to her grandmother, insinuating that I was starting to lose my mind. And the worst was the way she spoke to me, as if I were a child, as if I needed things, explained slowly. With patience, with condescension, she let go of my hand. I stood up. I told them I knew perfectly well what I was saying, that I was not crazy, that I was not confused, and that if they did not want to believe me, well, I was going to solve this alone. Christopher asked me to calm down. He told me no one was saying I was crazy, but his tone said exactly that. His look said exactly that. I left their house earlier than usual that day. I invented a headache, that I needed to rest. Amanda made me a tea to go. She hugged me. She told me to take care of myself, that if I needed anything to call them. And I nodded. I smiled. I pretended everything was fine, but inside I was destroyed, because my own son did not believe me, because my daughter-in-law treated me like I was a poor old woman raving, and because no one, absolutely no one, was willing to listen to me for real. On the way back home I cried. I cried from rage, from helplessness, from pain. Because this was not just about the moved things. It was about something much deeper. It was about respect, about being heard, about your word being worth something regardless of the age you are. And I realized that for them, my word was no longer valid. For them, I was already invisible, a burden, a problem, someone who had to be treated with care, but without taking her concerns seriously. That night I could not sleep. I stayed awake thinking about everything, about the years I had worked to give Christopher everything, about the sleepless nights when he was a baby and cried with fever, about the times I went hungry so he could eat, about everything I sacrificed. And now he was not even capable of believing me, not even of investigating, not even of wondering if maybe I was right. He preferred to think his mother was losing her sanity rather than consider that something strange was happening. The next day I went to an electronics store. I asked the young man at the counter about security cameras. He showed me several options, some very expensive, others simpler. In the end, I decided on 2 small cameras, wireless, with cloud recording. They cost $300 in total. It was a lot of money for me. Money I had been saving for other things, but I did not care anymore, because I needed proof. Proof that no one could deny. Proof that would give me back my credibility, my voice, my right to be heard. The young man explained to me how they worked, how to install them, how to watch the recordings from my phone. He sold me an additional memory card so I could save more videos, and he helped me download the app. I felt a little foolish at first. I am not very good with technology, but he was patient. He explained everything twice, 3 times, until I understood. And when I left that store with the bag in hand, I felt something I had not felt in weeks. I felt control. I felt I was doing something, that I was not staying still, that I was not going to let them treat me as if I were invisible. I arrived home and installed them that same day. One in the living room, hidden behind some books on the shelf. Another in my bedroom, on top of the closet, between some hat boxes I no longer use. No one would notice them unless they looked for them. I configured everything as they had explained to me, and it worked. On the screen of my phone, I could see my living room, my bedroom, empty, quiet, waiting. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a little calmer, because now I had eyes where I was not. Now I had a way to know the truth, even if that truth hurt me, even if that truth changed everything. I did not say anything to anyone, not to Susan, not to Christopher, especially not to Christopher, because if he found out, he would tell me I was exaggerating, that I was being paranoid, that I was wasting my money, and I did not want to hear that. Not again. I had already heard enough. Now it was my turn to prove that I was right, that I was not crazy, that I was not imagining things, and that I deserved to be heard, even if I had to prove it alone, even if no one believed me yet. Soon everyone would see. Soon everyone would know. And then they could no longer treat me as if my word was worth nothing. 2 days passed after installing the cameras. 2 days in which I checked my phone every 10 minutes, in which I left the house with my heart racing, in which I ran back to see the recordings, but there was nothing. Just my empty living room, my bedroom in silence, the hours passing without news, and I started to doubt again, to ask myself if Christopher was right, if I was exaggerating, if I had really spent $300 for nothing. But then Wednesday arrived, and everything changed. That day I went to church service as always. At 4 in the afternoon, the church is 15 minutes walking. The service lasts an hour. Then I stay chatting with some ladies. So normally I return around 6:30. It is my Wednesday routine, and everyone knows it. I left the house, I locked the door, I checked twice as I always do, and I left calmly. But this time, I had the phone in my hand, with the app open, looking at the screen from time to time while I walked. I arrived at church. I sat in my usual pew, the 3rd row on the right side, and I left the phone in my purse. During the service, I tried to concentrate, to pray, to stop thinking about the cameras, about my house, about everything that had been happening. But I couldn't. My mind kept going back there, wondering if at that moment something was happening, if someone was entering, if finally I was going to discover the truth. When the service ended, I left quickly. I did not stay to chat. I invented that I was in a hurry, that they were waiting for me at home, and I walked back faster than normal. Halfway there, I could not take it anymore. I took out the phone. I opened the app, and my heart stopped. There it was, a figure in my living room, a person moving in front of the camera. I stopped dead, in the middle of the sidewalk. With my hands trembling, I brought the screen closer to my eyes. I tried to focus, and then I saw her. It was Amanda, my daughter-in-law, in my living room, walking as if it were her house, dressed in leggings and a loose top, with her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking around, touching my things. I could not breathe. I felt like I was running out of air, that the world was moving beneath my feet. Because it is one thing to suspect, it is another thing to see. And I was seeing my daughter-in-law in my house, without my permission, without telling me, entering like it was nothing, as if she had every right. I leaned against a wall. I kept watching the screen. I saw her walk toward the kitchen, open the refrigerator, take something out, close the door, return to the living room, sit on my sofa, the one I bought 5 years ago with so much effort, and stay there, calm, relaxed, as if she were in her own house. I wanted to run. I wanted to go back and confront her. But something stopped me. Something told me to wait, to keep watching, that I needed to know more. I needed to understand what she was doing, why she was there, how long she had been doing this. So I changed cameras. I went to the one in my bedroom, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Amanda entering my room, opening my closet, taking out clothes, my clothes, touching them, smelling them, holding them against her body in front of the mirror, as if she were trying on my things, as if they were hers. I leaned against the wall. I closed my eyes. I breathed. 1, 2, 3 times, trying to calm myself, not to scream right there on the street. I opened my eyes again. I looked again, and she was still there, now checking my drawers, taking things out, looking at them, putting them back, but not in the same place, not in the correct order. And then I understood. I understood all the times I had found things moved, all the times something was not how I had left it. It was her. All this time it had been her, entering my house, touching my belongings, violating my space, my privacy, my dignity. I saw her walk around my room, touch my dresser, open my jewelry box, take out a necklace my late husband gave me, put it on, look at herself in the mirror, and smile, as if she were happy, as if she were enjoying this. And something inside me broke. Because it was not just that she was in my house, it was the way she did it. With such confidence, with such tranquility, as if this were normal, as if she had every right to be there, to use my things, to invade my life. I stood watching the screen for almost 20 minutes, watching her move through my house, sit on my bed, lie down, close her eyes, and stay there, asleep or resting. I could not distinguish well, but she was in my bed, in my sheets, using my pillow, and I was on the street, trembling, crying with rage, with pain, with betrayal, because this was not just an invasion, it was a violation of trust. It was a betrayal by someone I had welcomed into my family, someone I had treated with respect, with affection, someone who called me mom, and who was now doing this. I put the phone away. I dried my tears, and I decided not to return yet. I decided to wait, to let her believe everything was fine, that I did not know anything, because if I arrived now, if I confronted her, she would deny everything. She would say she had just arrived, that she had some excuse, and I could not allow that. I needed more. I needed more proof. I needed to understand how many times she had done this, since when, how much had been happening without me knowing. So I walked to the park. I sat on a bench, and I waited. I took out the phone every 5 minutes, watching her, following every movement. I saw her get up from my bed, fix the pillows, smooth the sheets, close the closet, walk back to the living room, sit on the sofa again, check her phone. And after almost an hour, finally, I saw her get up, take her bag, look around as if making sure everything was in its place, and leave. I heard on my phone the sound of the door closing, the click of the lock, and then the screen was empty again. My living room silent, my house violated, but now with proof, with evidence, with something no one could deny. I waited another 15 minutes before returning. When I got home, everything looked normal, the door locked, everything in silence. But I knew what had happened there. I knew she had been there, that she had touched my things, that she had slept in my bed. I entered. I locked the door, and I went directly to my bedroom. The sheets were slightly wrinkled. The pillow was not exactly where I left it. The closet had the door ajar again. Everything the same as the other times. But now I knew why. Now I had the truth. I sat on the edge of my bed, with the phone in my hands, and I watched the full video again. From the moment she entered until she left, every second recorded, every movement documented. And although it hurt to watch it, although every image was like a dagger in the chest, I also felt something else. I felt relief. Because I was no longer crazy. I was no longer imagining things. I had been right all along. And now I had a way to prove it. Now I had proof that no one could deny. Not Christopher, not Amanda, no one. But I also felt fear. Fear of what this meant. Fear of what was going to happen when everyone knew. Fear of how my relationship with my son was going to change. With my grandchildren, with the whole family. Because this was not something that could be ignored. It was not something that could be forgiven easily. It was a deep betrayal. A violation of trust that left wounds. Wounds that maybe would never heal completely. I saved the video. I saved it in 3 different places. On my phone, in the cloud, on a memory stick that I hid in the back of a drawer. Because I could not risk losing it. It was my only proof. My only defense. The only thing that gave me back my credibility. And I had to protect it. But I also had to decide what to do, how to handle this. If I should confront them immediately, or if I should wait, gather more evidence, see how many more times it happened, better understand the magnitude of what was happening. I decided to wait. I decided to be patient. Because I had lived 68 years, and something I had learned was that important decisions are not made in the heat of the moment. They are not made with a broken heart and emotions on the surface. They are made with a cool head, with strategy, with intelligence. And I was going to be intelligent. I was going to gather all the information I could. I was going to understand completely what was happening. And then, only then, was I going to act. But when I did, I was going to do it right. I was going to do it in a way no one could question. In a way that gave me back my dignity, my respect, my place in my own house and in my own family. During the next 2 weeks, I did not say anything. I followed my routine as always. I greeted Amanda with the same smile. I hugged my grandchildren. I ate at Christopher's house on Sundays. But inside, something had changed. I had changed. Every time I saw Amanda, I asked myself how she could fake it so well. How she could look me in the eyes and act as if nothing happened. As if she were not entering my house every time I left. As if she were not using my things. Sleeping in my bed. Violating every inch of my privacy. The cameras kept recording. And I kept discovering. It turned out she came almost every Wednesday, church day, and also some Tuesdays, grocery store days. She had identified my routine perfectly. She knew exactly when I left, and how long I stayed out. And she took advantage of that time to do her thing. To enter without permission. To live a parallel life in my house. As if my home were her secret escape. Her private place, her space to do whatever she wanted without anyone seeing her. I saw her do things I never imagined. One Tuesday I saw her enter and put on one of my dresses. A dress I bought years ago and almost never wear. She put it on. She looked at herself in the mirror of my bedroom. She twirled as if she were on a runway. She took pictures of herself, and then she hung it up again as if nothing happened. Another day I saw her lie on my bed with one of my books, one I was reading. She stayed there almost an hour, reading, resting. As if she had all the right in the world. I also saw her in my kitchen, making herself coffee with my mugs, eating things from my refrigerator, cookies I had bought, fruit I had peeled and stored in containers. She served herself as if it were her house, as if those things were hers. And afterwards she washed everything, arranged everything, tried not to leave a trace. But she always left something. There was always some detail out of place. Some sign I noticed. Because I knew my house. Because I paid attention. And because now I had eyes where before I was blind. One Thursday I saw her do something that turned my stomach. She entered my bedroom. She opened the drawer where I keep the old photographs. The ones from my youth. The ones from when Christopher was a boy. The ones of my late husband. And she stood looking at them. One by one. With a strange expression on her face. I do not know if it was curiosity or envy or what. But she was there, invading my memories, touching pieces of my history that did not belong to her. And that hurt me more than anything else, because photographs are sacred. They are the only thing I have left of people who are no longer here. And she was handling them as if they were just anything. I also saw her try on my perfume, my favorite perfume, the one I use only on special occasions. She put it on her wrists, on her neck. She smelled herself. She smiled, and then she left it there, as if nothing happened. And I thought of all the times I had smelled that scent in the air when I arrived home. All the times I thought it was my imagination, that maybe I myself had used it and did not remember. But no, it was her. All the time it had been her, using my things as if they were hers, as if I did not matter, as if my existence were nothing more than an obstacle in her path. I saved all the videos, every one. I organized them by date, by time. I took screenshots of the clearest moments, where her face was seen, where there was no doubt who it was, and I saved them in a special folder on my phone, a folder I called simply Evidence, because that was what they were. Irrefutable evidence that I was not crazy, that I was right, that everything I had been feeling was real, and no one was going to be able to deny it. No one was going to be able to tell me again that I was confused, that I was exaggerating, that my age was playing tricks on me. But I still did not know what to do with that information. If I should confront her directly, if I should talk to Christopher first, if I should show him the videos, or if I should do something else, something that made her understand that I knew, that I was aware, that she could not keep doing this without consequences. And then an idea occurred to me, an idea that scared me at first. But the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. I decided to leave her messages, messages that only she would understand. Signals that I knew what was happening, without saying it directly, without confronting her yet, just small things that would unsettle her, that would make her doubt, that would take away that tranquility with which she entered my house. Because she believed I knew nothing. She believed she was careful enough, that she left no traces. But I was going to prove to her that she was wrong, that I knew everything, and that I was watching her, even if she did not see me. The first message was subtle. A Tuesday before leaving for the store, I left a note in my bedroom, on the bed, where she always lay down. The note simply said, "I know you were here, nothing else." No signature, no explanation, just those 5 words. And I left, with my heart beating fast, wondering how she was going to react, if she would get scared, if she would stop coming, or if she would think it was a trap, a test, a game. That afternoon I checked the cameras from the grocery store. I saw her enter as always. But this time it was different. I saw her walk toward my bedroom and stop dead when she saw the note. She took it, she read it, and her expression changed. I saw fear in her eyes. I saw confusion. I saw panic. She looked around as if someone were watching her, as if I could be hidden somewhere. She read the note 2 more times, and then she put it in her bag. She did not leave it where it was. She took it, as if she needed to destroy the evidence, as if with that she could make it not exist. She did not lie on my bed that day. She did not stay long. She walked nervously through the house, checking the corners, looking for cameras maybe. Although she did not find them, they were very well hidden. And after about 15 minutes, she left, faster than usual, with her hands trembling. And I smiled, because for the first time in a long time, I felt I had some control, that I was not just the victim, that I could make her feel even a fraction of the discomfort I had felt for weeks, months maybe. 3 days passed, and she did not return. I thought maybe it had worked, that my message had scared her enough, that finally she was going to stop coming. But then Wednesday arrived, church day, and there she was again, entering my house, more cautious this time, looking at everything more carefully, but entering nonetheless, because she could not resist, because whatever it was that brought her here was stronger than the fear. It was an addiction, a need, something sickly she could not control. This time, I left something different. I moved one of the picture frames in my bedroom. I put it in a different place, in a place where she could not miss it, and next to the frame, I left another note. This one said, "I see you." 3 words, simple, direct, terrifying. And I went out again. I waited again. I watched again from my phone as she entered, as she found the note, as her face went pale, as her hands trembled more than the previous time. This time she left immediately. She did not check anything else. She did not stay. She just took the note, put the frame back in its place, and left almost running. And I knew it was working, that she was starting to understand that someone knew, that someone was watching her, that her days of entering my house freely were numbered. And although I still hadn't confronted her directly, although I still hadn't shown the videos, I had already achieved something. I had managed to take away her peace. I had managed to make her feel, even just a little of what I had felt, that sensation of being watched, of not being safe, of not having control. But this was just the beginning. Because I was not going to settle for scaring her. I was going to go all the way. I was going to make sure everyone knew the truth, that my son saw what his wife had been doing, that she faced the consequences of her actions. But not yet. I still had to be patient. I still had to wait for the right moment. The moment when everything was prepared, when all the pieces were in their place. And then yes, I was going to act. And when I did, no one was going to be able to ignore it. No one was going to be able to defend her. And no one was going to be able to tell me again that I was wrong. Because the truth was going to be so clear, so undeniable, that there would be no room for doubt. Only for consequences. Only for justice. The justice I deserved. The justice that had been denied to me for so long. Amanda stopped coming for a full week. I checked the cameras every day, at all hours. But she did not appear. Not Tuesdays, not Wednesdays, nothing. And for a moment I thought maybe it had been enough, that my notes had scared her enough to stop invading my house. But something inside me knew this was not over, that she would return, because people who do this kind of thing do not stop easily, not when they believe they can get away with it, not when they think no one else knows. And I was right. On the 8th day, she returned. A Tuesday morning. I saw her on the screen of my phone while I waited for my turn at the deli counter. She entered faster than other times, looking over her shoulder, nervous, but there she was, incapable of staying away. And this time I was ready, because I had prepared something special for her, something that would let her know without any doubt that I knew everything, that I had been watching her, and that this had to end. Before leaving that morning, I had left things in strategic places. In the living room, I put a large manila envelope on the coffee table. The envelope was empty, but she did not know that. Outside the envelope, I wrote with black marker, "Evidence, do not open." Simple, clear, impossible to ignore. And then in my bedroom, I left something more personal. On my bed, I placed the same necklace I had seen her put on weeks ago, the one my late husband gave me. And next to the necklace, I left a printed photograph, a screenshot from one of the videos, where she was clearly seen in my bedroom, looking at herself in the mirror, wearing my clothes. I did not put any note this time. It was not necessary. The photograph said everything that needed to be said. It showed her that I had proof, that I had recorded her, that I knew exactly what she had been doing, and that I could prove it whenever I wanted. I left the house with my hands trembling, not from fear, but from anticipation, from knowing that this was the decisive moment, the moment she would understand she could no longer hide, that she could no longer keep pretending, that everything had changed. I saw her enter. I saw her walk toward the living room and stop when she saw the envelope. She approached slowly. She took it in her hands. She turned it over. She read what it said outside, and I saw how her face broke down. I saw the panic in her eyes, the trembling hands. She opened the envelope, looked inside, and although it was empty, the message had arrived. She left the envelope where it was and walked toward my bedroom, with slow steps, insecure, as if she knew something else awaited her there. When she saw the photograph on my bed, she froze, completely motionless. For almost a full minute she did not move, just stared at her own image captured in my house, in my private space, doing something she should never have done. She took the photograph with both hands, brought it close to her face, and then she started to cry. I saw the tears run down her cheeks. I saw how her shoulders shook, and for a second I almost felt pity, almost. But then I remembered everything she had made me feel. All the times I doubted myself, all the times I thought I was losing my mind, and the pity vanished. Amanda left the photograph where it was, took the necklace, looked at it, and left it again on the bed. Then she left my bedroom, walked toward the living room, took her bag, and left. But before leaving, she did something I did not expect. She stopped in front of the door. She looked up, looking for the cameras, knowing I was watching her, and she spoke. She said in a low voice, almost in a whisper, "I'm sorry. Forgive me. I don't know why I did it." And then she left. Closing the door behind her, I saved the video of that day with special care. Because there was her confession. Maybe it was not explicit. Maybe she did not mention exactly what she had done. But it was enough. It was the acknowledgement that something had happened. That she knew I knew. And that finally, she understood this could not continue. I sat on a bench outside the store with the phone in my hands. And for the first time in months, I felt something resembling peace. It was not happiness. It was not complete satisfaction. But it was the beginning of something. The beginning of the end of this nightmare. That night I could not sleep. Not from anxiety this time, but because I knew the next step was the hardest. I had managed to let her know. I had managed to scare her. I had managed to make her stop. But the most important thing still remained. I still had to tell Christopher. I had to show him the proof. I had to make him see what his wife had been doing for months. And that terrified me, because I knew that when I did, nothing would ever be the same. Things between us would change forever. The family would change. And although it was necessary, although it was the right thing, it hurt to think about it. But I could not go back now. I had already come too far, and I deserved for the truth to be known. I deserved for my son to believe me. I deserved for my word to be worth something again. So I made the decision. In 3 days, it was Sunday. Family lunch day, and that Sunday was going to be different. That Sunday I was going to show them everything. I was going to put the videos in front of them. I was going to make them see what I had seen. And then, finally, I was going to recover my dignity, my respect, and my place in my own family. Sunday arrived faster than I expected. I woke up early. I dressed with care. A simple but elegant dress. I did my hair. I put on a little makeup. I wanted to look good. I wanted to look strong. Because I knew this day was going to be one of the hardest of my life. I put my phone in my purse. I checked 3 times that I had the videos saved, that everything was there, that nothing was missing. And before leaving the house, I did something I had not done in a long time. I called Susan. I asked her to accompany me, to go with me to Christopher's house. She was surprised. She asked me why, and I told her I needed a witness, someone trustworthy, someone who could confirm what I was about to show. Susan stayed quiet for a moment, and then she said yes, that she would be there, that she would pick me up in half an hour. And she kept her word. She arrived on time, with a face of concern. She asked me what was happening, and I just told her she would know soon, to please trust me, and she nodded, because she was that good of a friend. We arrived at Christopher's house at 1 in the afternoon. As always, Amanda opened the door. And when she saw me, when she saw Susan was with me, her face went pale. She tried to smile. She tried to act normal. But I saw the fear in her eyes. I saw how her hands trembled when she let us in. The kids ran to hug me. Christopher came out of the kitchen drying his hands. He gave me a kiss on the cheek. He shook Susan's hand and asked what we owed the visit of my friend to. I told him there was something important I needed to talk to them about, to both of them. Alone. Christopher frowned. He looked at Amanda. She avoided his gaze. And then he knew something was wrong. He asked his oldest son to take the kids to the room to play. We waited for them to leave. And then we sat in the living room. Me in the armchair. Susan next to me in a chair. Christopher and Amanda on the large sofa, facing me. The silence was heavy, uncomfortable. And I knew I had to break it. That I had to start. Even if it hurt. Even if every word cost me. I took a deep breath. I took out my phone. And I started speaking. I told Christopher that weeks ago I had told him something weird was happening in my house, that things moved, that someone was entering, and that he did not believe me. That he told me I was confused, that it was my age, that I was exaggerating. He opened his mouth to interrupt, but I asked him to let me finish, to please listen to me until the end. And he closed his mouth. He nodded, and I continued. I told him I had installed cameras in my house, that I had done it because I needed proof, because no one believed me, and that I had recorded everything that had been happening for weeks. Christopher looked at me confused. He asked what I had recorded. And then I looked at Amanda. I looked her directly in the eyes, And I told her she knew perfectly well what I was talking about, that she had been entering my house, without my permission, without telling me, using my things, sleeping in my bed, violating my privacy. Amanda shook her head. She said that was not true, that I was lying, that she would never do something like that. Her voice trembled, her eyes filled with tears, and Christopher looked at her, then he looked at me. And I saw the doubt on his face. I saw he did not know who to believe. So, I lifted my phone and said I had proof, that I could show them to him, and that after seeing them, he could decide who was lying. I opened the folder. I selected the first video, the one from Wednesday when I saw her for the first time, and I passed the phone to Christopher. He took it, he looked at the screen, and he started to watch. I saw how his expression changed, from confusion to surprise, from surprise to disbelief, from disbelief to anger. I saw how he clenched his jaw, how his knuckles turned white from gripping the phone so hard. And when the first video ended, I showed him the second, and the third, and the fourth. All the videos I had saved for weeks, all the proof of what Amanda had been doing. When he finished watching everything, Christopher left the phone on the table. He stayed quiet, motionless, and then he turned to look at Amanda and asked her if it was true, if she had really been doing that. Amanda was crying. The tears ran down her face, and finally, she nodded. She said yes, that she had done it, that she did not know why, that she could not explain it, that she just needed a place to be alone, to escape, to feel different, and that her mother-in-law's house was that place. Christopher stood up. He walked toward the window. He stayed there with his back to everyone, and I saw how his shoulders shook. I saw he was crying, that he was processing, that he was trying to understand how his wife could have done something like that, how she could have lied to him, how she could have invaded his mother's house, the woman who had raised him alone, who had sacrificed everything for him. And I felt his pain. But I also felt relief, because finally he believed me. Finally he knew the truth. Susan took my hand. She squeezed it, and she looked at me with eyes full of tears. She told me in a low voice that she was sorry, that she should have believed me from the beginning, that she should have trusted me. And I nodded, because her support now meant everything. Christopher finally turned around. He looked at Amanda and told her he could not believe what she had done, that how could it have occurred to her, that she had to ask his mother for forgiveness, that she had to return the key, that she had to promise she would never do something like that again. Amanda stood up. She walked toward me. She knelt in front of me, and between sobs, she asked for my forgiveness. She told me she was sorry, that it had been a terrible mistake, that she did not know what was wrong with her, that she was confused, that she felt trapped in her life, that she needed to escape, and that my house was her escape, but that she understood she had been wrong, that she had violated my trust, my space, my dignity, and that she could never forgive herself for that. I looked at her, this woman kneeling in front of me, crying, begging, and I felt so many things at the same time: rage, pain, betrayal, but also some compassion, because I saw that she was also suffering, that she was also lost, that she also needed help, and although what she had done had no justification, although she had crossed all possible lines, she was also human. She also had the right to be wrong, even if the consequences of her mistakes were painful for everyone. I told her I accepted her apologies, but that I needed the key, now, and that I needed her promise that this would never happen again. She nodded. She took the key out of her purse. She gave it to me, and she promised, with a broken voice, with tears falling, she promised she would never enter my house without permission again, that she would respect my boundaries, that she would do whatever was necessary to regain my trust, even knowing she might never fully achieve it. 4 months have passed since that Sunday. 4 months since I showed the videos, since the truth came to light, and things have changed. Not everything went back to how it was before. Maybe it never will. But there is something new now, something that did not exist before all this. There is respect. There are boundaries. There is awareness that my space is mine, that my word has value, that I am not invisible just for being 68 years old. Amanda is going to therapy. Christopher told me a few weeks ago. He told me she had been dealing with anxiety, with a crisis she did not know how to handle, that she felt trapped in her role as mother and wife, that she needed a space of her own and did not know how to ask for it the right way. She did not know how to communicate what she needed, and then she looked for that space in the wrong place, in my house, invading what did not belong to her. It is not a justification. It never will be, but at least it is an explanation. And that helped me understand a little better, to let go of a little of the rage I had been carrying. Christopher also changed. He came to visit me alone one afternoon, without Amanda, without the kids. He sat with me in the living room, and he asked for my forgiveness. He told me he felt terrible for not believing me, for having treated me as if I were losing my reason, for having chosen to doubt me instead of investigate, for having assumed my age made me less reliable. He cried. My son cried in front of me, and told me he would never forgive himself for making me feel so alone, so invalidated, so invisible. I took his hand. I told him I forgave him, because he was my son, because I loved him, and because we all make mistakes. But I also told him I needed this never to happen again, that I needed him to listen to me, to trust me, to treat me with the respect I deserve, not for being his mother, but for being a person, a woman who has lived and who knows what she sees, what she feels, what she experiences. And he promised. He looked me in the eyes and promised things would be different, and so far he has kept his word. Sunday lunches continue, but now they are different. There is more communication, more honesty. Amanda treats me with more care, not with pity, but with genuine respect. She asks me how I am. She listens when I speak. There is no longer that condescending attitude she had before. And when she looks me in the eyes, I see something more than shame. I see real regret. I see the effort she is making to change, to be better. And although trust is not recovered overnight, at least there is a path. At least there is intention. The children remain the same, innocent, happy, oblivious to everything that happened. And I am glad for that, because they do not have to carry the mistakes of adults, with the complications of family relationships, with secrets and betrayals. They just need love. And that is what they receive, from all of us. Despite everything, Susan is still my rock, my support. She comes to visit me every week. We drink coffee, we chat, and sometimes we talk about what happened, about how I felt, about how I feel now. And she listens to me, without judging, without opining too much, just being there, being my friend. And that is worth more than anything else, because in moments like these you discover who is really by your side, who believes you, who holds you when everything collapses. The cameras are still installed. I have not removed them, and I have no plans to do so soon. Not because I distrust, well, maybe a little, but mostly because they give me peace of mind. Because now when I leave the house, I know I can verify that everything is fine, that no one is there, that my space remains mine alone, and that peace of mind is priceless. It is worth more than the $300 I spent. It is worth more than any discomfort it could cause. I have learned many things in these months. I have learned that getting older does not mean becoming invisible, that having more years does not make your word worth less, that your intuition is still valid even if others doubt it, and that sometimes you have to defend your space, your dignity, your right to be heard, even if it is against your own family, even if it hurts, even if it changes things forever. I also learned that justice is not always noisy. It does not always come with screams or revenge. Sometimes justice is silent. It is strategic. It is gathering proof. It is waiting for the right moment. It is acting with intelligence instead of impulse. And it is recovering your power without needing to destroy others. Because in the end, it was not about punishing Amanda. It was about them believing me, about them respecting me, about them understanding that I matter, that my house is mine, that my life is mine, and that no one has the right to invade that, regardless of who they are. Women of my age were taught to shut up, to endure, not to make waves, to accept what we got without protesting. But I decided that was not enough, that I deserved more, that I deserved to be heard, and that if no one was going to listen to me, then I was going to make them see me. I was going to get proof. I was going to prove my truth. And I did. Alone. With my own resources, with my own strength. And no one can take that away from me. If you are going through something similar, if you feel no one believes you, if they have made you feel you are exaggerating or that your age makes you less reliable, I want you to know something. Your gut is valid. Your perception is real, and you deserve to be heard. No matter how many years you have. It does not matter if others doubt. If something does not feel right, it probably isn't. And you have every right to investigate, to look for answers, to defend your space and your dignity. It was not easy. There were moments when I doubted myself. Moments when I thought maybe I was exaggerating, that maybe I was being paranoid. But I trusted what I knew, what I saw, what I felt, and in the end, I was right. And that validation did not come from others. It came from myself, from my strength, from my refusal to be invisible. Now I sleep peacefully, without fear, without asking myself if someone was in my house while I was not there, without doubting my own sanity. And that tranquility is the most valuable thing I recovered. More than the key, more than the apologies, more than anything else, I recovered my peace, and with it, I recovered my life, my space, my dignity, and no one will ever take that from me again. Because now I know I can defend myself, that I can fight, that I can make them listen to me, and that never, never again will I allow them to treat me as if I did not matter. This is my story. A story of betrayal, yes, but also of strength, of resilience, of a woman who refused to be invisible. And if my story can help someone else find their voice, defend their space, trust in themselves, then it was all worth it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, because in the end, it is not just about me. It is about all of us. The women who grow older and refuse to disappear. The ones who are still standing. The ones who keep fighting. The ones who keep demanding respect. Until the last day.